Hey guys, Dwayne here. Today I want to talk a little bit about divorcing a narcissist. I know it's kind of a trend I've been going through lately, talking a little bit about this, but I think it all ties together. And I've talked a little bit about some of the other aspects of dealing with a narcissist, but I wanted to roll it back into divorcing one. So first thing, right out of the gate that you need to know, things are not going to go as you expected. If you think that things are going to be calm and reasonable, it ain't going to happen. So so the hard part about this, unless you happen to have this epiphany before all this is going on, you may not realize really what you're dealing with. And if that's the case, and you've kind of been under this narcissistic spell, and you've been providing, narcissistic supply to the person and stuff like that. When the dynamic changes, when you finally have had enough, if you don't realize what you're dealing with, a lot of weird things are going to happen. So, first thing, it's not going to go as you expected. If you think that it's going to be reasonable, and things will go okay, it ain't gonna happen. So, and that's the thing. If you're going through, well, not that's the thing. One of the things, if you're going through this, and let's say maybe you found this video because things are starting to change, so just listen to everything I talk about, and then look at if it's happening to you, if this is what you're dealing with. If it is, there's a strong possibility that you are dealing with somebody who either is a full-blown narcissist or has these narcissistic traits. And if they do, what I'm going to go through are some of the things that you're going to experience. Like I said, first thing is, things are not going to go as expected. You will think that maybe you're having a communication, talking about how to not reconcile the relationship, although that may be part of it, but just that you have an understanding of how this is going to go, and it'll just go completely different. The next thing, and I mainly, my thing is about being a dad and talking about kids. If you have kids, they will be used as pawns. It sucks. It's really not good. It's not cool. It's not, whatever word you want to use for it, it's not good. But it's going to happen. So what I mean by that is, if you're in that environment, what's going to happen is your kids are going to be basically in this mode, because they're going to be raised in it to where they know how to deal with both of you. They know how to deal with your emotional quirks. They know how to deal with her emotional quirks. Now, if her emotional quirks is telling you or telling her what she wants to hear, and if she's wanting to hear negative things about you, you can take it to the bank that information will be immediately run over to her attorney and put in court paperwork and used to paint you as a villain, an abuser, all those type of things. Now, so the point, I guess, the reason that I'm saying this is, if you know it, well, see, there's a different part to it, right? You can know it, but not really know it, right? So there were a lot of things at the time. I knew what was going on, but I didn't really understand why. In retrospect, I should have, but hey, it is what it is. So I knew that the kids would do that, right? Because they'd done that type of stuff before, and I guess I expected that. I didn't necessarily expect it for an attempt to use that information against me. Okay, so if you're prepared for it, then I think, had I been prepared for it, I could have dealt with, when some of these other things happened that were incredibly traumatic for me and scared me, and I wasn't really sure what was going to happen, I would have been in a better position to relax isn't really the right word, but to calm down a little bit about it And then when I was getting when I was getting advice from my attorney about not really, you know, it's like, hey, don't worry about it, then I probably would have been a lot calmer. And had I been calmer, then my reactions would have been better. I would have been triggered and stuff like that. Okay, so after that, you know, about them using your kids as pawns, the next thing they're going to do is they're going to make themselves the victim. So you will be turned into the you know, the abusive husband that no one ever knew about. Well, okay, so let me back up a little bit. So I'll say that they will make themselves a victim. Okay, the hard part about this is people aren't really going to know what end is up, right? Because, you know, okay, on the flip side, the stereotypical abuse thing is that's what happens, right? I mean, what I mean is that, you know, there's this facade that's presented to the public that you guys are, everything's great and all the drama and the abuse and everything happens behind closed doors, so no one ever sees it. So people are already prepared for that, right? So when someone starts saying, you know, oh, well, this person, you know, was abusive and they were emotionally abusive and they were, I mean, technically what I'm saying is along the same lines, right? I mean, I'm saying that I experienced this, but in, you know, I think externally there was no problem. I mean, prior to the divorce, there was no indication from anybody that there was a problem with the relationship. That's not entirely true, because in talking to people later, I've got received information to where, you know, other people did know kind of what was going on, and I just was blinded by it. So, but that's typical, right? I mean, that's typically what happens is that there's the situation unfolds and is going on, and you know, it's so they make themselves a victim, and they're good at playing the victim. I don't like using, you know, playing, you know, saying that I'm a victim or playing the victim card, so to speak, because I think it's counterproductive. I don't want to be that person. I want to move on from this. But, you know, but that's the next phase that'll happen with this. They'll use your kids to justify or validate anything. They'll project their issues onto them. The kids to get the conditional love from the narcissistic parent will tell them what they need to hear so that they can get, so the child can get the recognition and the love that they need. It's a big mess, okay? So the next part of this, and technically what I've already talked about kind of ties in with that, is gaslighting tactics. And that will be all this information, right? I mean, when they're going around and, you know, nothing is going as expected. I mean, you think you've made an arrangement and it gets changed. All of this is for them to try to retake control, to change the narrative in their favor, to make themselves a victim, to make it look like they're trying to protect, you know, their children. Because typically they won't be our children, and they won't, you know, it'll be their children. That was a pet peeve of mine whenever the conversations would happen and it was my children, my this, and it's like, actually they're both of ours, but, you know, anyways. So all of those things are gaslighting tactics. And I know I've already talked a little bit about it, but all of this stuff rolls in together, okay? So, you know, that the gaslighting stuff is going to be whenever, you know, you're getting information from your attorney that's completely, or from the court system and everything, that's completely off kilter. When your kids are acting one way around you, and then you're hearing that they're acting another way around them. Now, there's ways for that to get fleshed out, and we'll talk about that later. But you know, the main thing on it is just to remain calm in it, and don't respond to any of the gaslighting stuff. Okay. The last thing is, you are not going to get any closure. A narcissist will not give you any closure. It's like, for them, I think it's perpetuating that open wound to deny you that. So if you find yourself dazed and confused and you're just feeling like, what happened? You know, I mean, you know, like everything just kind of completely blows you away. And, you know, what'll end up happening is you'll even get stuff where they'll say one thing to you, and you, depending on, you know, your information tactics, I guess, or what people are telling you, they may be saying one thing like, oh, I'm, you know, why don't you trust me? I'm just, you know, I'm only thinking about the best for everybody, right? And then you hear from other people where they're telling stories about how horrible you are and things that you've done, and you know, how they were victimized by tactics that, you know, you're just like, what? You know, and some of those things, depending on where you work, I mean, they can jeopardize your job, your career, your you know, your future. I mean, everything, and you can just be in a complete state of shock. Now, the other thing to keep in mind on this, and I know I was talking about, you know, not getting any closure, but one thing I wanted to mention is they know what's important to you. They know. They've been watching you for a period of time. They've been, you know, figuring you out. They know where to hit you where it hurts, and you know, it's scary because they can play these little games to try to get what they want and threaten, or and it could be a passive aggressive thing. It could be not like over. I mean, they're more than likely, they're not going to come out to you and say, I'm going to do this, this, and this. I'm going to destroy your career. I'm going to take all, you know, every dime I can. I'm going to make sure that you lose your job. And then I'm going to make sure that the state comes after you for child support, and you won't have driver's license, and, you know, you'll go to jail, and, you know, I mean, whatever, all this stuff. They're not going to say, they're not going to, more than likely, they're not going to come out and say that directly to you. They'll know what your fears are and what trigger points you have, and they'll light the match. They'll gaslight you and set you off to try to, you know, to get what they want. Because ultimately, that's the thing, right? Ultimately, for a narcissist, the only thing that matters is what they want. Nothing else matters. There is no fairness. There is no compromise. There is nothing. The only way you have a chance in this is if the court system ultimately says, no, if you go this way, you're going to lose everything. Or you know, like basically, it's like there's a risk to them that if they do something, that it might blow up in their face, and then they will calm down. But you're not going to be able to tell them that. You won't be able to have a conversation with them and say, look, you know, this, you know, these are the things that are going to happen. You know, this isn't going to go this other way. You can't do that. You are not going to be able to communicate with them. So, you know, it sucks because then then everything's done through attorneys or through the court or whatever. But, you know, and here's the thing, guys. If you are, let's say you do try to communicate, you are trying to, like, you know, I can't just waste money, you know, have an attorney send her attorney a letter, or send a letter to her, because it's just a waste of money. So you try, right? So you try to communicate, you try to send an email, you try to talk, you try to, you know, you do whatever, and nothing is happening. All you're getting is lip service. You know, you're getting, oh, well, maybe, okay. I mean, if you're having that type of thing, recognize that something is wrong, that something is different, that something isn't usual, or is out of the ordinary, okay? Now, the part of the problem is that a divorce is a contentious thing anyways. I mean, you know, no one goes into a divorce, well, at least most people don't go in thinking, hey, great, you know, oh, well, I still like this person. We're not in love anymore, and we're not going to be married anymore. But it's okay. We're going to be adults about this. You know, I mean, if you're at that point, anyways, there's a lot of anxiety and anger and all that kind of stuff already wrapped into there. So a little bit. I mean, that's not to say that everything that's going south is because you're dealing with a narcissist or whatever. I mean, part of that is the typical divorce stuff. But if you're not able to communicate, if you're not able to come to some compromises that stick, and if everything is like a step backwards and things are being changed, recognize that for what it is. That's an indicator. That is a huge indicator that something isn't right. Okay? Something isn't right. If your kids are being used against you, if things are just completely going bizarro, you know, if you're hearing that they're making themselves out to be the victim, that you know, the poor little them, that's a huge narcissistic tactic. If they're gaslighting you and, you know, and trying to get you to react, it's all part of the game. It's all part of the narcissistic game. So if you are having those things happen to you, you need to take a step back. You need to pause. You need to hit the pause button and stop, slow down for a minute and say, what in the world is going on? Now, if your support system is strong, then, you know, maybe you have people who can help you to recognize this and deal with this. But if you don't, and a lot of people don't get this whole part of it, you need to figure that information out on your own. Okay. All right, I kind of went off on a tangent there. And like I said, the last thing is you're not going to get closure. I mean, if you're sitting there and you're like, okay, well, I want, you know, you're expecting closure, you're not going to get it. You won't get it because they'll know that you want it and they won't give it to you. I don't even know if they can. They may not even be able to. I'm not entirely sure about that one. You know, there's differencing opinions on it. Like some people say they know exactly what they're doing and they're doing it on purpose. Other people say it's a defense mechanism not to give them an out, because they don't get an out. They're still responsible for their actions, but that it's not necessarily intentional. It's not that they're doing it to attack you. It's more to protect themselves. That still doesn't make it right. And on that, like I said, you won't get any closure. Okay, so I wanted to make a quick video on going through a divorce with a narcissist. I probably will need to make a few more on this because this is kind of a pretty quick going through this topic. Just know it's going to be complicated. This whole thing is going to be complicated. In the divorce part, it's really going to be complicated. That's where some of those other techniques of you know, minimizing contact, like what I talked about in my gaslighting video. And if you haven't seen that, go watch that, because that will talk about techniques that you can use to keep yourself from basically taking the bait on gaslighting. Okay, so on that, I'm gonna wrap this up. And you know, if you like this video, if it's making sense to you, give me a thumbs up. If this channel is helping out, please subscribe. If you have an experience where you were divorcing a narcissist, you know, I mean, there's a lot of people who talk about, you know, breaking up with a narcissist. Divorcing one is a little bit different and a little more complicated, especially when there's kids involved. You know, I'd love to hear your experience with that as well. So on that, I'm going to wrap it up. So thanks for taking the time to watch this video. I hope you're doing okay. Hope this stuff is helping you out. And take care, guys. Just be good to yourself. You know, give yourself some breathing room. If you're going through this, it's really difficult and it's trying, and you know, yeah, it's tough. So on that, I'm gonna close this up, and I will talk to you on the next one. All right, thanks, guys.